Have you ever wondered how far a simple act of kindness can go, and what it costs to stand by it when the world refuses to see your worth? Before Kayla Santos realized it, before truth and power collided in ways she could not imagine, everything began with a moment that shattered the ordinary rhythm of a quiet morning. The bell above Café Aurora rang at 8:47. And then the world stopped breathing. The sizzling on the stove fell silent. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Forks hovered above plates. Because 5 men in matching black suits had stepped into the tiny cafe as if they were entering a courtroom. At their center stood an older man with silver hair, an expensive leather briefcase tucked under his arm, his eyes sharp and searching, cutting through the room with purpose. Then his gaze found her. "Are you Miss Kayla Santos?" he asked, walking toward her with the slow, measured confidence of someone carrying the weight of life-changing news. For a heartbeat, Kayla's world tilted. Had she done something wrong? Was this about her mother's debts? About something she didn't even know she'd done? She nodded silently, unable to speak as every eye in the cafe locked onto her. Rosa peeked from the kitchen, Vim froze behind the counter, and even the regular customers leaned in without shame, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. "My name is Dr. Hamilton," the man continued. "Attorney for the Whitmore family. I need to speak with you about Mr. Robert Whitmore." Just hearing Robert's name made her chest tighten. The gentleman from Table 7. The 78-year-old who came every morning at 7:30. The one who whispered good morning like it was fragile. The one whose trembling hands she helped without making a fuss. The man who had never treated her like she was invisible. Is he all right?" she whispered. Dr. Hamilton lowered his head. "Mr. Whitmore passed away last night. Peacefully. In his sleep. And he left very specific instructions regarding you." The cafe around her dissolved into a distant hum. Robert. Gone. The man she had protected from silence and loneliness without ever expecting anything in return. I don't understand," she breathed. "Why would he leave anything for me?" "That," the attorney said softly, "is exactly what we must discuss. If you would please come with us." Vim rushed toward them. "Kayla, she didn't do anything." "For the record," Dr. Hamilton said with surprising warmth, "she did everything right." As Kayla untied her apron, hands trembling, she had no way of knowing that the next few minutes would open a door into a world she never imagined entering. A world built on power, privilege, and secrets. A world in which a single black waitress, quiet, overlooked, underestimated, was about to become the center of a storm that would shake an entire family to its core. And it all began with one simple choice: to treat a lonely old man with dignity when no one else would. Before we continue, if you haven't done it yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more stories that will pull you in, move you, and stay with you long after they end. Trust us, you don't want to miss what comes next. And now, let's continue. Dr. Hamilton's office occupied 3 polished floors of a financial district tower, marble, dark wood, and a skyline view worth more than Kayla earned in a year. Walking through the pristine hallway in her worn sneakers, Kayla felt small, out of place, as if she had somehow stepped into the wrong life. "This way, Miss Santos," Hamilton said, guiding her toward a large conference room. Inside, 3 people sat waiting. And Kayla knew instantly, instinctively, that these were the people who would despise her the most. Victoria Whitmore, immaculately dressed, around 50, with the cold, sculpted beauty of someone who had never known need. Beside her, Bradley, 28, arrogant, wrapped in a suit that screamed old money. And a younger blonde woman Kayla assumed was his wife. Victoria barely lifted her eyes. Bradley looked her up and down with open distaste. "Is this the person?" he muttered, as if Kayla were an object rather than a human being. "Bradley," Hamilton warned. "Enough." Kayla sat in the lone chair placed opposite the family, feeling as if she were on trial. Hamilton opened a thick folder. Mr. Robert Whitmore updated his will 3 months ago after receiving a pancreatic cancer diagnosis. He chose not to inform his family. Victoria scoffed. "Typical." Father loved theatrics. Hamilton continued calmly. The first portion of the will concerns the family. The Beacon Hill Mansion, the 2 summer estates, the art collection, valued at $12 million, and a $50 million trust split between Victoria and Bradley. Kayla exhaled slowly. $50 million. Numbers too large to imagine. Bradley relaxed. Well, at least he hadn't completely lost his mind. Hamilton turned to the next page. His tone shifted. There is a second part of the will concerning the Whitmore Holdings restaurant chain. Victoria straightened. What second part? Hamilton looked directly at Kayla. The entire restaurant chain, 47 establishments across 6 states, along with the distribution center and all operational assets, are left entirely to Miss Kayla Santos. Silence crashed through the room. Victoria's face drained of color. Bradley choked. That's no. No. Impossible. There is no mistake, Hamilton replied. Additionally, $15 million has been allocated to Miss Santos for improvements and expansion of the business. Bradley erupted. This is absurd. She's a waitress. She barely knew my grandfather. Kayla finally found her voice. I did know him. Every day for the past 2 years. Victoria sneered. You called him Robert. As if you were equals. We were friends, Kayla said softly but firmly. He told me about the books he loved, about missing his wife, about what? Bradley snapped. How easy he was to manipulate. How much money he had. The accusation stung like a physical blow. I didn't even know he had money, Kayla said. I thought he was just. Oh please, Victoria cut in. A black waitress at a cheap café doesn't just stumble into $80 million. You targeted him. Hamilton hit the table. Enough. Mr. Whitmore left a letter for Miss Santos. He handed Kayla an envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. My dear Kayla, she read softly, her voice unsteady, if you are reading this, then my time has already reached its quiet end. The room dissolved around her. All she heard was Robert's voice in her mind, gentle, patient, warm. For 2 years, the letter continued, you were the only person who treated me like a man, not a walking bank account. Not a name. Not a burden. Victoria scoffed loudly, but Kayla kept reading. You never knew that I owned the restaurant chain you worked for. You never knew that each day I observed the kindness you offered not only to me, but to everyone around you. Kayla blinked as her eyes blurred again. In my last months, I pretended to need help cutting my toast just to see whether your kindness was genuine. You never asked for anything. You never hinted at favors. You never treated me as anything other than a human being. Kayla swallowed hard. When the young homeless man walked in hungry and you paid for his meal with your own money, you didn't know I saw it. When you defended Rosa from that rude customer's harassment, you didn't know the story reached my ears. Victoria's lips tightened. Bradley shifted uncomfortably. My family will inherit my personal wealth, the letter said. But my business will go to someone who remembers that feeding people is an act of dignity, not just profit. Kayla, you have a heart this family lost long ago. Use what I leave you. Build something good. Show them that kindness and strength can be the same thing. Kayla lowered the letter slowly, her chest aching. The room felt heavy with the weight of Robert's words. Victoria shot to her feet. We're contesting this. We'll prove you manipulated him. Good luck, Hamilton replied evenly. Mr. Whitmore documented every interaction he had with Miss Santos for 3 months. He hired private investigators to verify her character. He recorded everything. This will is airtight. Bradley slammed his fist onto the table. She can't run a company. She doesn't know anything. Mr. Whitmore anticipated that concern, Hamilton said calmly. He established an advisory board of experts to guide her. And any attempt by the family to sabotage her position automatically voids your entire inheritance. Victoria stared at Kayla with pure venom. You won't last a week. Kayla slowly stood. Something inside her had shifted. Not fear, no. Something stronger. You can try, she said quietly. Because she finally understood one thing, they saw her as nothing. And underestimating someone who has nothing to lose is the greatest mistake a powerful family can make. The next 2 weeks felt like being dropped into deep water and told to swim. Kayla had gone from café waitress to owner of a multi-million-dollar restaurant empire, and everyone who hated her was waiting for her to drown. Her first meeting at Whitmore Holdings proved it. Bradley had gathered every regional manager, a room full of middle-aged white men in expensive suits, each wearing expressions ranging from annoyance to open disdain. As Kayla walked in, wearing her single best dress from a discount store, she felt every pair of eyes judging her. Everyone, Bradley said, voice dripping with sarcasm, meet our new owner. Miss Kayla Santos. Straight from the world of serving coffee. I'm sure she'll have some groundbreaking business insights. Soft laughter rippled through the room. Kayla took the seat at the head of the table, the seat that belonged to her, and forced her trembling hands to steady. Actually, she said, I do have a few observations. Bradley leaned back, enjoying himself. Oh? Please. Enlighten us. Kayla inhaled slowly. I visited 7 of our restaurants in the last 10 days. In 5 of them, Black and Latino employees are confined to the kitchen and cleaning roles, while front-of-house positions are overwhelmingly white. The room shifted. The laughter stopped. In 3 locations, she continued, I witnessed managers speaking to employees of color differently, harsher tone, less patience, fewer opportunities. One of the managers, Peterson, snorted. With all due respect, miss, running restaurants isn't about social issues. It's about profit. You're absolutely right, Kayla replied calmly. So let's talk profit. She turned her gaze toward him. Your numbers in the Southern District have dropped 23% in a year. That decline began the same month you initiated staff optimization, firing older, experienced employees. Peterson blanched. The room fell silent. Kayla had spent 2 sleepless weeks devouring every financial report, chart, and metric she could get her hands on. And she had help. Linda Chun, the company's CFO, was brilliant, overlooked, and tired of being ignored by the Whitmore family. When Kayla asked to review financial statements, Linda had been all business until Kayla began asking real questions. Questions no one had ever bothered to ask. Why aren't we investing in training? Kayla had wondered. Turnover is eating 15% of net profit. Linda had looked up, truly looked at her, for the first time. You actually read the reports, she said. I read them 3 times, Kayla admitted. And some things don't add up. That was the turning point. Linda began showing her everything, the patterns, the inconsistencies, the strange figures buried in the books. And that was how Kayla learned the truth. Bradley wasn't just hoping she would fail. He was actively sabotaging the company from the inside. Transfers of skilled employees to failing locations. Cancellation of contracts with reliable suppliers. Sudden spikes in expenses at selected restaurants. Artificially created shortages. Design choices meant to tank performance. Linda had laid out the truth plainly. Bradley is deliberately destabilizing operations. The plan is simple, make the company look incompetent under your leadership. Create panic. Then swoop in and buy everything back for pennies. Kayla stared at the spreadsheets illuminated on Linda's laptop. And Victoria? She's supporting him, Linda said. She already has lawyers searching for loopholes in the will. They're preparing to argue that you're unfit to run the company. Kayla felt anger simmer beneath her ribs, not fear, but something sharper. And why are you helping me? She asked softly. Linda smiled, but the expression held years of pain behind it. Because I watched Bradley burn millions on idiotic ideas while ignoring every warning I gave. Because Victoria once called me Daddy's little helper in front of an entire boardroom. And because she hesitated, then sighed. Because Robert Whitmore hired me when no one else would take an Asian woman in corporate finance seriously. He believed in me. And now, I believe in you. Kayla exhaled shakily. She wasn't alone. Over the next days, she met others Robert had quietly supported behind the scenes, people overlooked, dismissed, or pushed aside by the Whitmore family. Marcus Williams, a black manager whose restaurant had thrived, until he was abruptly transferred to the worst location. Sophia Morales, a gifted chef whose innovative menu ideas were repeatedly blocked with the excuse, our clientele wouldn't understand. James Park, a marketing specialist mocked in meetings for suggesting outreach to diverse communities. They all carried the same wounds. And Robert had noticed every one of them. Robert talked to us, Marcus said over lunch. Not officially, but he listened. He always listened. Sophia leaned in. There's something you need to see. In his office. There's a safe only you're authorized to open. That night, Kayla stood alone in Robert's immaculate office. She found the painting Sophia mentioned and pushed it aside. Behind it, the safe. Hamilton had given her the combination sealed in an envelope. Her fingers trembled as she entered the numbers. Click. Inside were stacks of documents, but not financial reports. Recordings. Transcripts. Private investigator files. Contracts, photos, spreadsheets. Years of quiet, relentless documentation. Kayla's heart pounded as she skimmed page after page, evidence of fraud, prejudice, illegal schemes, and systematic sabotage. Bradley. Victoria. Their accountants. Their shell companies. Robert had seen everything. And he had gathered proof powerful enough to destroy them. Kayla's phone buzzed, a message from Bradley. I hope you're enjoying your little game. Investors are coming next week. You'll fail. Then I'll fix the mess you created. For the first time, Kayla smiled. They thought she was naive. Weak. Overwhelmed. They had no idea they had just started a war they could not win. Bradley's big investor meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the executive lounge on the 30th floor, a room he'd chosen specifically to intimidate her. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a crown. The marble table gleamed. Everything about the space screamed. This is not your world. Kayla arrived 5 minutes early, carrying a simple briefcase. Beside her stood Linda, calm, poised, unreadable. 5 investors, all middle-aged white men, were already seated. They wore the confident expressions of people who didn't come to negotiate, but to claim easy profit. Gentlemen, Bradley said with a smug smile, this is our current owner, Miss Kayla Santos. As you can see, she's overwhelmed. Victoria added a delicate, venomous touch. Poor thing. She tried. But running an empire isn't like serving coffee, is it? Kayla sat at the head of the table. The seat that belonged to her. Thank you for coming, she began. Before we discuss any potential sale, you deserve to hear the real state of the company. Bradley scoffed. Kayla, please. They're here for business. Not stories. You're absolutely right, she replied, opening her briefcase. So let's talk numbers. She slid documents across the table. Did you gentlemen know that in the last 18 months, $2.3 million have disappeared from the company's financial reports? The investors leaned forward. Bradley stiffened. That's ridiculous, he spat. She's confused. Kayla's tone remained calm. These are transfers to offshore accounts. Overpriced contracts with shell companies. Fake invoices. All authorized by Bradley Whitmore. Mr. Henderson, the lead investor, frowned deeply as he read. These numbers don't match the reports we received. Because the reports you received, Kayla said, were falsified. Linda connected her laptop to the projector. Dr. Hamilton, Kayla said gently, you can come in now. The door opened. And the attorney walked in carrying a box of evidence. Victoria's face drained of color. What are you doing? Bradley barked. This is a setup. Kayla didn't blink. This is justice. The first recording appeared on screen, Bradley's unmistakable voice. I need sales in the Southern District to tank. Cancel the contract with the cheap supplier. Hire the expensive one. When the waitress panics, she'll sell. A heavy silence flooded the room. The second recording played, Victoria instructing accountants to manipulate profit reports. The third, racist remarks about Kayla. The fourth, bribes paid to suppliers to deliver bad quality ingredients after Robert's death. One investor whispered, "My God, you tried to crash your own company." Bradley's voice shook. Those recordings are out of context. Kayla stared straight at him. What context justifies destroying evidence? The screen shifted to security footage of Bradley burning documents days after Robert died. Burn everything. The little black girl can't see the real numbers. Victoria shot to her feet. You recorded private conversations. That's illegal. Actually, Dr. Hamilton replied evenly, every recording was made by Mr. Whitmore himself, in his private office and on his property. He had every legal right to document what he suspected, which was that you were stealing from him. Henderson turned to his fellow investors. Gentlemen, I think we have no interest in buying a company mired in internal fraud. Wait! Bradley shouted, panic cracking his voice. She's manipulating you. She's lying. She's... A what, Bradley? Kayla asked quietly. Go on. In front of all these men. Say what you want to say. He opened his mouth, nothing came out. Every insult he wanted to throw would only confirm the prejudice already exposed on the recordings. Kayla stood slowly, her voice steady. Gentlemen, as you can see, Whitmore Holdings is perfectly healthy. The problem was never performance. It was sabotage. Now that it's over, our 5-year projection shows a 300% increase in profitability. Linda displayed the charts. The investors stared, astonished. Kayla continued, I'm not interested in selling anymore. Instead, I have another proposal. Bradley froze. I'm offering to buy your inheritance share, Kayla said. $5 million each. Victoria let out a sharp laugh. $5 million? Our inheritance is worth 50. Was worth 50, Hamilton corrected calmly. Before the evidence of fraud you just saw. Before the federal investigation that will follow. Before the public scandal when this goes to the press. Kayla opened a sealed envelope. I've already delivered copies of everything to the FBI, the IRS, and to the New York Times. The story goes public tomorrow morning. Bradley's face twisted. You can't do this. We're family. Kayla let out a breathless, humorless laugh. Family? Family doesn't destroy the company the patriarch built. Family doesn't steal. And family certainly doesn't call someone the little black girl behind closed doors. Victoria's mask cracked completely. No one will accept you running this company. You don't belong in this world. Kayla looked around the table at the investors who now watched her with unmistakable respect. She looked at Linda, who nodded proudly. At Hamilton, who smiled softly. You're right, Victoria, Kayla said calmly. I don't belong in your world. I belong in a world where integrity matters more than privilege. Where competence matters more than connections. Where treating people with dignity is the minimum, not a luxury. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. And that is exactly why I'll thrive, where you failed. Henderson stood and extended his hand. Miss Santos, it would be an honor to work with someone of your integrity. When you're ready to expand, call us. The investors shook hands with Kayla. Not one of them even glanced at the Whitmores. Humiliated, Bradley and Victoria gathered their things in silence. At the door, Victoria turned with one last bitter warning. This won't last. You'll fail. And when you do, you'll be alone. Kayla smiled gently. Victoria, you underestimated me so much, you gave me the time and space to show you exactly who I am. Thank you for that. They left without another word. The room felt impossibly quiet after everyone had gone. Kayla walked toward the window, looking down at the city stretching beneath her. That view, once belonging to a world she never imagined stepping into, now belonged to her. Robert hadn't only given her a company. He had given her a purpose. A chance. A weapon forged out of kindness. And Kayla understood something deeply now. People who have everything will fight the hardest when they realize they can lose it all to someone they never believed capable. But the Whitmore's humiliation was only beginning. 6 months later, her face appeared on the cover of Forbes magazine, labeled Breakthrough Businesswoman of the Year. Under her leadership, Whitmore Holdings had become the most profitable restaurant chain in the region. 23 new locations had opened, each with inclusive hiring policies and a diversity program other companies raced to copy. Marcus was now a regional director. Sophia led culinary innovation for every restaurant. James oversaw a marketing team that finally reflected the customers they served. Linda had become her COO and the company's new backbone. Meanwhile, Bradley was working as a sales manager in a department store, fired from 3 jobs for attitude problems. Victoria was selling insurance over the phone, her mansion repossessed to pay legal fees. They had built their lives on arrogance. Kayla built hers on integrity. At the grand opening of the new flagship restaurant downtown, Kayla cut the ribbon beside a framed photograph of Robert. She touched the frame gently. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me that kindness is power." Marcus approached with a grin. He knew how to pick people. Kayla smiled softly. "The best revenge," she said, "is not destroying those who underestimate you. It's building something so extraordinary that they spend the rest of their lives wondering how they ever failed to see your worth." Because Kayla had proven one truth. Character always outlives privilege. And dignity will always outshine prejudice. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life tales where compassion triumphs over cruelty and humanity wins every single time. The following months brought a kind of transformation Kayla had never imagined for herself. She wasn't simply running a company now, she was rebuilding it from the ground up. And with every policy she changed, every restaurant she visited, every employee she uplifted, the shadow of the Whitmore family grew smaller and smaller. But their downfall wasn't a single explosion. It was a slow, inevitable collapse. Bank records surfaced. Offshore accounts were traced. Former employees spoke up. Investigators connected years of financial manipulation and tax evasion. Federal agencies pursued charges. The Whitmore name, once synonymous with wealth and prestige, became tied to headlines about corruption and fraud. And through it all, Kayla remained steady. She visited restaurants quietly, speaking to dishwashers, cooks, hosts, and servers. She installed clear pathways for promotions. She implemented leadership training, anti-discrimination policies, and transparent pay structures. She partnered with local communities and offered scholarships for culinary students from marginalized backgrounds. For the first time in its history, Whitmore Holdings wasn't just profitable, it had purpose. One afternoon, Linda handed her a printed report. "You should see this," she said. Kayla scanned the numbers. Revenue growth, 312%. Employee retention, up 47%. Customer satisfaction, highest since the company was founded. Kayla blinked, a soft smile forming. "We did it." "No," Linda replied gently. "You did it." Still, Kayla refused to take full credit. She knew exactly who had planted the seed. Robert Whitmore. The man who had seen goodness in her long before she saw it in herself. One evening, Kayla visited his grave, a quiet place under a maple tree. She brought him black coffee, just the way he liked it. "I hope I'm making you proud," she whispered. And in the warm hush of that afternoon, she felt it, an invisible nod, a quiet affirmation from someone who had believed in her more fiercely than anyone else ever had. Kayla turned away from the grave with renewed strength. There was still work to do. Still lives to change. Still battles to win. But for the first time in her life, she knew she could win them. In the years that followed, Kayla became more than a business leader, she became a symbol. A reminder that greatness can rise from the most unexpected places, and that humility often hides extraordinary strength. Her story spread, first locally, then nationally. Students wrote essays about her. Young women cited her as inspiration. Communities she helped honored her with awards she never sought. But Kayla was not driven by recognition. She was driven by something far deeper, an unwavering belief that dignity should never depend on status. At a leadership conference in Boston, she stood on stage, looking out at an audience of thousands. "I didn't grow up with power," she said. "I didn't grow up with wealth. I grew up with people who worked hard, treated others with kindness, and believed that character is the only true currency. Robert didn't leave me a business because I was the smartest person in the room. He left it to me because kindness still matters, and because he knew I would protect that truth." The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Later that evening, Marcus approached her with news. "The board approved your expansion proposal. You're going national, Kayla." She laughed softly. Robert would have loved that. Yes, Marcus said. But he would have loved you more. Kayla stepped outside into the cool night air, the city lights flickering like scattered stars. She had begun as a waitress serving coffee to strangers who barely looked at her. She had faced prejudice, dismissal, and contempt. But she had also discovered allies, uncovered truth, and rebuilt a legacy that was on the brink of collapse. Her life had become proof of a simple truth. When people underestimate you, when they decide your worth before you ever speak, when they think they can crush you because you don't come from where they come from, you don't fall. You rise. And Kayla Santos had risen higher than anyone ever expected. Her journey had started with a single act of kindness. And it had ended with a legacy built on dignity, courage, and unshakable strength.